Hello, my name is Filipe Alves. I sometimes go by the name Simon, and this is a first video on Panamax. This is an old game, I believe from 2014, and in it you are basically companies trying to get boats to the Panama Canal and get cargo through on those boats. That's the gist of it. Game is pretty much that. There's no real other way to do it. You get points, or basically trying to get money, and the person with the most money will win the game. You get money, or basically by running good company, or trying to make sure your opponents or your enemies run good companies as long as you have shares in them. This is very much a stock taking game with a bit of action selection thrown in. Essentially, on your turn, you're going to be choosing actions, which will either be loading up cargo onto different ships or moving those ships through the Panama Canal. The exciting thing happens when you actually get to move ships. You see certain locks in the Panama Canal, of which I think there are 3 on one side and 3 on the other side. Basically, you can only hold a certain amount of ships space, so it can only hold a maximum of 4 ships in there, which means if another ship comes in, those other ships have to be moved out. So you have this wonderful thing where you will want to move one ship into a lock and push the rest out, and almost create a chain reaction, which is a lot of fun. Now, when it comes to this game, I did enjoy myself when I played it. I enjoyed the combo-y nature of moving boats along. The game had some downsides to it, though. The major thing is the rulebook is horribly laid out, and just there's a lot of times you just like, okay, can I do that? Is that what does this mean? It's like it's not necessarily that clear. For example, when you finally get to deliver a ship, if the dice is a 1 or 2, you actually treat that as it being a passenger, and you get the passenger token, which is actually worth a certain amount of money, depending on if you are the first or second or third or first to get it. But you kind of going by the normal rules, which is if a dice gets to the other side, then you get the dice value, which is how much money you're going to get. The money goes into your company, and then later on, the company will then pay out shares or dividends to people who have shares, and they'll go into your personal amount. The player with the most money at the end of the game and their personal amount is the actual winner. You also have various objective cards in the game that will help you get, well, basically money at the end of the game, which one would be, for example, I had the one objective card which was to have passenger tokens. So the more passenger tokens I had, the more personal money I would get at the end of the game. There are other various ones. One would be like for each European West ship, or I guess alliance token, I think it's called, or I'm not fully sure. But whenever you do basically a job for a certain country, i.e. America, European or Chinese markets, you basically get a token saying that you're helping them, and those kind of unlock bonuses as you progress through the game, and also you will get points or money when you move those kind of ships. For example, if you move the military ship belonging to China and you have a good reputation with China, you'll get more money into your personal account. Now, I'm struggling to think of more towards the game. The game, for the first time you play it, is really much just simply do the actions and try and get money into your personal account. The game starts to shine more as you play through the game multiple times, because you start realizing that maybe the best way is not actually to invest in your own company, but to invest into other people's companies and try and have a sort of negotiation style where you're trying to rely on them to help you, but you're also getting them to help you by making sure their company succeeds, because then you get more money in the long run. The game doesn't take too long. I mean, it basically takes over 3 rounds, and each round is roughly about 40 minutes long. So you're looking at about a 2-hour game, which is actually quite nice, but does mean your actions have to be very, very crucial. When you load up stuff, it's very important, because you want to make sure that you maximize your load efforts onto ships that you care about. Likewise, when you do movement actions, you want to make sure that you get the most movement and you move the right ships at the right time. If you, for example, try and take some lock actions, you don't have any ships in the lock, that can sometimes feel a waste. And that's quite cool. The one downside is, though, the game doesn't have that many ways of catching up. If you kind of have a bad start where you kind of make suboptimal choices and you basically burn through all the cash in your company, you're going to struggle in the second and third round to actually do anything. The game is very, very mean in that regard, where you can stuff up and that will be the end of your game. There's not much coming back from that. There's also the issue that some of the objective cards are just inherently better than others. Sure, I had the one that gave me 5 points or 5 money for every token I had, which was up to a maximum of 3. So I had 15 point objective card at the end. But then you had another one, which is if you manage to pay out dividends, or i.e. make sure your shares got paid out at the end of the game, you could take all the money left over in your company, which means if you knew you had the card all the way at the start, you could just make sure that you ran a really successful company, bought shares in everyone else's companies, and then just stole all the money outright, which could be absolutely up to 40 or 50 coins, which is insane. But then again, if you play the next time, I guess you know the meta, so then you know that objective card is in the deck, and therefore you have to avoid it. It's probably one of my biggest flaws with the game, is that those objective cards can be very swingy. It's a nice thing that you don't know who's going to win at the end of the game, but it's also kind of a cheek where you feel like you just got cheated because you didn't get the right objective card to start off with. There is the thing where you kind of take one objective card, pass the other one around, take it again, get a second choice, but again, that kind of feels like it's trying to solve a problem that the game created in the first place. There's also the issue that this is a Stronghold production, or at least the copy I played with, so the component quality was decent, but there are two things I absolutely hate with it. Firstly, the plastic tokens you get for money, and this is why I keep referring them as points, because there's no indication as money. It's just basically a plastic disc, either shaped as silver or gold, to represent 1s or 5s. And it's, ugh. Honestly, you should just use cardboard tokens if you're not going to try. Or just use paper money. In a game like this, paper money actually works really nicely. You can just like fan a whole stack of 1s and feel like you're a wealthy capitalist investment pig. And I feel like that was a missed opportunity there, where they just kind of went for the crappy tokens that feel like they're more in an arts and crafts supply than actually belong in a nice proper board game. The second thing is the overall art style is fine. It's nothing. It's uninspired at best. It's very generic. There's no slant on the style. It's just realistic, I guess you could say. My biggest concern, which was, when I think about it in the long term, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. I'm going to sound stupid for hating on it for so much. But for me, this is one of the things that just like kind of triggers me and makes me go into a game thinking, okay, did they actually put in the effort? And that is, you have two different sides of the Panama Canal. You have the left-hand side and the right-hand side, or basically the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere for the Panama Canal. The trouble being, China and American West. So China and the western coast of America are on the right-hand side of the board, and Europe and American East are on the left-hand side of the board. So really, the board isn't facing north in a sense. It's not facing north in a geographical sense. It's actually facing south, which is just a really weird thing to wrap your head around the first time you play it, where it's like, okay, my ships are coming from China, and they're going to the west? What? No, that can't be right. It kind of takes you out there. Like, it's a very similar thing to what happens in movies, right? In movies, you want to have that immersion, right? You want to make sure that your audience member is fully immersed in the story, so they don't have sections where they break that immersion and start questioning certain decisions. Sometimes if you encounter like a really bad movie, or sometimes be taken out of it, you'd be like, that was kind of a silly thing they did. Why would they do that in the movie? It's a suspension of disbelief that you're trying to go for in a movie. This kind of suffered the same thing, where this is a decent, very good game. The trouble is, you have that at the start, and you instantly get taken out of being absorbed into this kind of stock trolling world. And that's a big concern. So the three big concerns are, the board is the wrong way around, the money tokens are terrible, and they kind of feel bad. Just honestly go for something else. And the rulebook is kind of badly laid out. There is objective cards, which I already spoke of, which might want to be changed a bit. But the general play is really nice. I like how you choose an action and you slide 10 ships through the Panama Canal, and it just feels wonderful to watch. It feels like you're just doing a combo in Magic or in a card game. You're just like, bah, 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 bah. And then this ship goes into this ship, and this ship goes into this ship, and then that pushes that into that lock, and then that lock opens up. It's great. And when you get a ship to the other side, you get money. It feels good. It really is an enjoyable experience. It's also not difficult to learn. It's going to take some time because of the rulebook, but it's a fairly easy game to understand once you play it 1 or 2 times, where it's just like you have these 3 actions. You want to occasionally send cubes to the railway because that will determine first position, and they'll also build your company status with certain markets, which is great. And that's really it. Sometimes if you get a ship to the other side, you'll be able to, or your ship, you'll be able to get certain cards, which could either be cards that allow for movement, depending on how big the ship was, or another objective card, which will then be really good at the end of the game, or it could just be ones that eliminate cost of goods. One of the things I love is just how much you get charged for goods. It seems like a weird thing because you're being punished by the game, but it feels fun when you can basically work it around so that you make sure that you don't get charged a lot for cargo, and you somehow manage to get someone else's ship into a terrible position where they're now charging for whatever dollars, I think it is, for their cargo. That feels absolutely wonderful. So you're sitting there having to pay only 4 money at the end of the round for cargo space, where your opponent, who you just pushed into 2 locks, which now give them 3 each, has having to pay like $14. It's brilliant. It feels so cool. And I do like the fact that there's a meta that develops after the first game where people will be like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to just buy shares in my own company because I'm not getting enough out of it. And maybe I want to then help another person's company by pushing their ships along because their ships have my cubes on it. So I'm helping my company, but I'm also helping their company as well because some of the cubes belong to them. And that's great because I'm going to get shares at the end, which will give me money into my personal supply. It's great. It's not going to blow anyone's mind. Panamax is not a game that is going to absolutely enthrall you. It's not going to be a game that takes your breath away. But it's a very good game. It's a fun design, and it's a nice theme. The shipping of goods around is clever. At least I think. It's nice to see the locks in action. I think this is a good game. I think this can definitely be one added to your collection if you do like a more economic slant. Just be careful with some things I didn't mention. Maybe that's going to take you out of it though. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. I do make sure to put out at least one video a week talking about one of the games I've played recently. And maybe you didn't like the game. Maybe the fact that the plastic tokens used for money aren't that bad. Maybe it doesn't bother you, but let me know in the comment section. You can always hit the dislike button. I dislike knowing what people think, because that's going to help me create better videos in the future. Anyway, that's going to be for me. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.